My sister Sarah was the family hero for caring for our grandmother after her stroke, getting up at 5 a.m. every day and staying at her house every night. When me and my 11-year-old brother snuck in, Grandma jumped out of her wheelchair, trembling, begging us not to tell Sarah. Her arms were covered in bruises, the room reeked of urine, and she sobbed that Sarah had been starving her and blasting death metal all night while stealing her Social Security checks. That same day, we found Grandma dead in her chair with Sarah standing over her, crying about how she'd choked on water. I used to think my sister was a saint. My name is Tom. I'm 31 and live just outside St. Louis, Missouri. My younger brother Charlie and I always believed Sarah, our older sister, was the one holding the family together. Everyone did. After Grandma had her stroke, Sarah moved in with her, took over her care, and became the golden child overnight. She was always at family dinners with a tight smile and dark circles under her eyes, brushing off praise like it embarrassed her. She doesn't sleep, Mom would whisper. She's just so devoted. It was hard not to believe it. Sarah was up before dawn every day, driving across town to teach 3rd grade, then going straight back to Grandma's house. She posted pictures on Facebook of soup she made for Grandma, books she read aloud, the ramp she helped install. People commented things like "You're a blessing and an angel on earth." I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel guilty watching it from the sidelines. Then Charlie called me one Thursday morning and said, "Something's wrong. We need to check on Grandma." Alone. It felt sneaky, but we knew Sarah was at school, so we went over. The moment we stepped inside, I knew. The house didn't smell right. The living room was a mess. Crumbs on the floor, a used diaper on the couch. The back of my throat tightened. We walked through the hallway quietly, calling out, "Grandma?" She was in her bedroom, sitting up in bed, hands shaking. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. When she saw us, her face crumpled. "Oh, Tommy," she whispered, and reached for my hand. "I thought I was going to die in here." I didn't understand. "What do you mean?" She broke down, whispering things I didn't want to believe. That Sarah locked up her meds, played loud music at night, so she couldn't sleep, fed her once a day, sometimes not at all. She said Sarah was taking her Social Security checks, that she tried to tell someone before, but Sarah always found out and punished her. I looked at Charlie. He was already tearing up. "She said Sarah throws things," he said, "that she hides her hearing aids so she can't call out." We stayed for nearly 2 hours, listening and taking notes. Grandma didn't want us to leave. She kept gripping my wrist like a lifeline. When we finally stepped out of the house, I felt like I had just walked out of a horror movie. For 27 years, I believed my sister was the strongest person I knew, and now I wasn't sure I even knew who she was. After that visit, I couldn't look at Sarah the same way. A few days later, she stopped by my place to drop off some leftover soup for Charlie. She acted like everything was normal, bright smile, asking about work, teasing me about the mess in my apartment. But I could see the edge in her eyes, the kind of sharpness I'd never noticed before. Like she was constantly on the verge of snapping. That Sunday, we were all at Mom and Dad's for dinner. Grandma was too tired to come, according to Sarah. I watched her laugh with our cousins, soaking up compliments like she'd earned a medal. "I don't know how you do it," Aunt June said, passing her the rolls. "You're like Wonder Woman." Sarah just gave a tight, practiced laugh and said, "Well, someone has to step up." My hands clenched under the table. I caught Charlie's eye. He looked like he wanted to throw up. Later that night, I pulled Sarah aside in the kitchen. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice casual. "I stopped by Grandma's Thursday. Just wanted to see how she was doing." Her entire face changed. She froze for a split second, then smiled. "Too big." "Oh yeah? She didn't mention that." "She looked kind of rough," I said. "Is she sleeping okay?" Sarah slammed the fridge shut a little harder than necessary. "She's 91, Tom. She's not going to be doing cartwheels. And I'm doing everything I can. So unless you're offering to take over." "I'm just asking," I said, holding my hands up. "Don't bite my head off." She stared at me for a beat. "Then don't accuse me of not doing enough." From the other room, Charlie dropped a glass. It shattered. Everyone rushed in, and the moment passed. But things kept slipping. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's patience thinned. She started snapping at me over nothing, when I forgot to bring napkins to Sunday lunch, when I asked her if she'd taken Grandma to her appointment. Her face would get red, her voice sharp and mean. The hero mask cracked more each time. Then, one night, I overheard her on the phone. She was pacing outside my parents' house, talking to someone, probably a friend from work. "I swear, if one more person tells me how amazing I am, I'm going to scream," she said. "They have no idea how hard this is. You think I'm doing this out of love? I haven't had a night off in months. But whatever. Let them think I'm Mother Teresa." It didn't sound like venting. It sounded like someone playing a part they were starting to hate. A week later, I tried to do something nice. I put together a gift basket, bath stuff, snacks, a handwritten card, and dropped it off at Grandma's, assuming Sarah would see it later. The next morning, she stormed into my place before I could even get out of bed. "Are you spying on me now?" she yelled, slamming the basket onto my kitchen table. "What? Sarah, it was a gift." "Don't play dumb," she snapped. "You're trying to make me look bad. Just admit it." I stood there, stunned, shirtless, trying to wrap my head around what was happening. "I was trying to thank you." She stepped closer, her voice lowering into something mean and bitter. "Well, don't. I don't need your pity." And with that, she left, slamming the door behind her so hard it shook the frame. I stared at the basket for a long time. I'd spent months defending her. I told everyone she was doing her best, that caregiving was hard, that we should be grateful for her sacrifice. But now, I wasn't so sure what, if anything, she was sacrificing. It was the bruises that broke me. A couple weeks after the gift basket disaster, I couldn't take it anymore. Sarah's mood swings were getting worse, and Grandma had stopped answering our calls. When she did pick up, she sounded confused or distracted, and once she even whispered, "I don't think I'm supposed to be talking." That was the last straw. Charlie and I waited until Sarah was at work. Her school had a training day, and we confirmed she'd be gone until at least 3. We parked down the block, entered through the back gate, and let ourselves in with the spare key that was still hidden behind the porch light. It smelled worse than before. The curtains were drawn. Dishes were piled up in the sink. I called out, "Grandma, it's Tom and Charlie." No answer. My chest tightened. We moved down the hall, and that's when we heard it. A faint whimper, like someone was crying into a pillow. Her bedroom door was cracked open. She was lying in bed, the covers pulled up to her chin, her hands shaking so badly, I thought she might drop the TV remote she was holding like a lifeline. Her face was pale, drawn, her cheeks sunken. But the worst part? The dark purple bruise along her jawline, and another near her wrist. A third one barely hidden under her nightgown near the collarbone. "Jesus Christ," Charlie whispered. When she saw us, she looked both relieved and terrified. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice barely audible. "If she finds out." "She won't," I said, moving to sit beside her. "Grandma, what's going on? Who did this to you?" She started crying, quietly, like she'd practiced hiding it. Then she told us everything. How Sarah started locking up the fridge, claiming it was for dietary control. How some nights, Sarah would play music so loud that she couldn't sleep. How she wasn't allowed to touch her own phone anymore. And how the bruises came from accidents. Sarah pushing her to sit faster, yanking her up by the arms when she was too slow, shaking her awake if she made noise during the night. "She's taking my money," Grandma whispered. "My Social Security. I haven't seen a single dollar since February. She says it's all for expenses, but..." She trailed off, staring at her hands. I glanced at Charlie. His face had gone pale, lips pressed into a tight line. He started filming with his phone. Just a slow pan of the room, the pill bottles hidden on a shelf, the bruises. We didn't say anything. We didn't have to. We were both thinking the same thing. This wasn't just neglect. It was abuse. And Sarah was getting away with it because no one ever questioned her. She had everyone convinced she was this angel of mercy. Even me. Especially me. Grandma squeezed my hand and said, "I didn't know how to tell you. I thought if I said something, she'd stop feeding me altogether." We stayed with her for a while, cleaned the room a little, made her a sandwich. I wrote down everything she said. By the time we left, I felt like I was walking in a fog. My stomach churned with rage and shame. For all those dinners I'd praised Sarah, for every time I told people how lucky we were to have her. And then, that evening, Charlie called me. "She's dead," he said. "What?" "Grandma. The hospital just called. They said it looks like she choked on something. Sarah found her. She's already on her way there." I dropped the phone. Just let it fall. Because somehow I already knew. Something about this wasn't right. And the way Sarah's fake sobs sounded over the voicemail she left an hour later, that just confirmed it. The next morning, we were all at Grandma's house. Sarah called everyone, my parents, our uncle, a couple cousins, saying we should gather before the funeral home came. She wanted us to say goodbye properly, like it was a family picnic and not the scene of a crime. I hadn't slept. Charlie looked worse. We both knew the truth, or most of it, but we weren't ready to drop the hammer. Not yet. We needed time to figure out what came next. Sarah met us at the door wearing all black. Black slacks, black sweater, even a delicate black ribbon in her hair. She looked like she'd just walked out of a movie about grief. Her eyes were red but dry. Her mascara was flawless. "Thanks for coming," she whispered, hugging Mom. "It means a lot." Inside, the house had been cleaned. Dishes gone, curtains open, fresh flowers on the table. Almost too clean, like someone had scrubbed it all down in a panic. Charlie and I exchanged a glance, but didn't say anything. Sarah led everyone into the living room, where Grandma's favorite blanket had been draped over her recliner like a memorial. She lit a candle, cleared her throat, and launched into her story. I found her around 7 this morning, she said. I was bringing her tea like I always do. But she was slumped over. There was food. Her voice broke. I think she must have choked. I tried CPR. I really did. But it was too late. Tears welled in her eyes at all the right moments. She sniffled, dabbed her nose, even paused like she needed a second to collect herself. She looked around the room with this hollow, aching expression like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. She was like a second mother to me, she whispered. I just hope she knows how much I loved her. Everyone was nodding, murmuring little words of comfort. Mom held her hand. Our uncle patted her back. I wanted to scream, because I knew what that love looked like, and it had nothing to do with care. Charlie had to step outside. I followed a few minutes later, my head spinning. She was winning. Somehow, she was pulling it off. Again, on the way back to my place, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and felt my stomach drop. Sarah, thank you for being here. I know this isn't easy, but you've always been strong. I couldn't have gotten through today without you. There was a smiley face at the end. A damn emoji. It didn't feel like gratitude. It felt like a message. Like she was saying, remember who's in charge here. I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen until it dimmed. Charlie called later that night. He couldn't sleep either. She's setting the narrative, he said, and no one's going to question her. I know. What do we do? I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know. All I knew was this. Sarah was playing the part of the grieving granddaughter to perfection, and if we didn't move fast, she was going to get away with everything. It took a few days before Charlie said it out loud. She killed her, he whispered, voice shaking. Or maybe not on purpose, but she let it happen. I didn't argue. By then, we'd already started going through everything. Charlie had gone back into Grandma's house while Sarah was out running errands, said he needed to pick up a framed photo for Mom. But what he really did was take pictures, photos of the empty pill bottles, the ones labeled for nighttime sedation that were still full, the ones marked, take daily, that were untouched. He found Sarah's laptop too, left unlocked in the den. In it, spreadsheets showing every deposit of Grandma's Social Security, notes labeled monthly breakdown. But the money didn't match up. That night, we sat at Charlie's place and started connecting the dots. We used a whiteboard he'd borrowed from the school where he worked. Timeline on one side, bank records, texts, and statements on the other. A pattern started to form. On the first of each month, when the Social Security check hit, Sarah's Amazon account would light up. Orders of furniture, electronics, designer skincare. Meanwhile, Grandma was losing weight, sleeping in the same torn nightgown every day. Look at this, Charlie said, pointing at a highlighted line. March 3rd, Grandma's check clears. March 4th, Sarah books a weekend at that spa in Osage Beach. She told Mom it was a teacher retreat. He shook his head. I think she's been siphoning Grandma's money for a year. Longer, probably. That's when Sammy spoke up. He was sitting off to the side, arms crossed. Our youngest brother, still in college, quiet until now. I've been keeping stuff too, he said. We both turned. What do you mean? I asked. Sammy pulled out his phone and opened his photo gallery. There were screenshots of Sarah's Facebook comments from months earlier, posts about how exhausting it was caring for someone who doesn't even remember your name, texts where she vented to friends, complaining that Grandma was a burden, that she wished she'd just give up already. I thought she was just being dramatic, he mumbled. But after what you told me, I started going back. He showed us a video he'd taken 2 months earlier at a birthday dinner. In the background, Sarah's voice could be heard laughing and saying, if I wanted to poison her, I'd just use Ensure and no one would even know. We all sat there in silence for a few seconds. That chill down your spine kind of silence. That night, we made a pact. We'd gather every screenshot, every receipt, every bit of evidence we had. We'd record phone calls, document dates, build something airtight. Charlie labeled the folder on his desktop, Case, Grandma. And the more we worked, the more convinced I became. This wasn't just about neglect. This was a setup. And Sarah had been getting away with it for far too long. The more we dug, the darker it got. Charlie and I started checking Sarah's online activity. Nothing illegal, just the stuff she made public. Her Facebook groups were the first red flag. Support circles for caregivers, sure, but not the kind you'd expect. These weren't about stress relief or medical advice. They were about financial survival. Thread after thread where people asked questions like, can I use Grandma's money for household groceries if she lives with me? Or, what happens if they die with money left in the account? Sarah had commented on more than one, usually under a fake name, but the email was a giveaway. It matched an old backup she used in high school. Then Charlie found one post that made my blood run cold. Username, Greyhouse Caregiver 27. Post title, if an elderly person is losing weight and not eating, is that considered natural decline or do I have to report it to hospice? That account had commented a dozen times across different forums, always dancing around the same subject: death, inheritance, money. And every post had come within days of Grandma's monthly checks hitting the account. It was no longer a theory. Sarah was preparing for this, planning it. Meanwhile, she was slowly creeping into my world. I didn't know if it was paranoia, but suddenly she was showing up at places she'd never bothered with before. She added a few of my friends on Facebook, liked old posts, left smiley comments under photos of me and my dog. At Tyler's birthday party, she showed up uninvited and told him how grateful she was for my help through all the stress. "Tom's been such a rock," she said, sipping white wine like she'd never screamed at me over a gift basket. Tyler pulled me aside later. "Is she okay? Something feels off." I didn't respond. I didn't know how to explain it yet. Then came the call from the bank. I was in the middle of work when my cell buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. "Hi, this is Sandy from First Heritage Bank. We're calling regarding recent transactions on an account ending in 7182, registered to Beatrice Dempsey." "Grandma." I sat up straighter. "Is something wrong?" There have been a series of large withdrawals, several cashier's checks made out to a Sarah Dempsey. We just wanted to confirm that these were authorized. The pattern raised a flag. I froze. When were they made? "Within the last 3 weeks. One for 2,000, another for 2,500. All just under the limit that triggers automatic reporting." She was structuring the theft. I told Sandy to freeze the account if possible and hung up. Charlie was already on his way over when I called. We pulled up the bank records Sarah had left lying around. Everything matched. Her habits, the dates, the withdrawals. All linked to spa weekends, Target binges, and what looked like a $700 pair of boots. We added the bank notice to the folder. Sammy renamed it Case, Sarah/Elder Abuse and Theft. And that night, sitting in my kitchen, Charlie said what we were all thinking. "She's not just a bad caregiver. She's a criminal." I nodded. And now? We had the receipts to prove it. It happened at dinner. Mom wanted to host one last meal as a family before the funeral. She said it was what Grandma would have wanted, which might have been true, back when we all believed Sarah was some kind of martyr. So we went. All 3 of us. Me, Charlie, and Sammy. We didn't bring the folder, but we were ready. Sarah showed up late, of course. Flawless again. Black blouse, subtle jewelry, hair tied back in that loose bun she always wore when she wanted to look fragile and overworked. She gave everyone kisses on the cheek, even me. "Tom," she said softly. "Thanks for being here. Means a lot." I stared at her. Of course. Wouldn't miss it. We made it through the salad and halfway through the roast before I asked. "So, Sarah," I said, cutting a piece of bread slowly, "when was the last time Grandma took her meds?" The fork stopped halfway to her mouth. She blinked. "What?" "Her meds. She had prescriptions for blood pressure, pain, sleep." "I don't see how that's relevant now," she said, voice tightening. Mom gave me a warning look. "Tom." "No, really. I'm just wondering how carefully everything was tracked. You know, since Sarah was the one keeping records." Sarah set her fork down. "I took care of her every single day, Tom. You want to sit here and throw shade because you couldn't handle seeing her for 10 minutes without crying. Go ahead. But don't question what I did." "I'm not questioning," I said. "I'm pointing out inconsistencies." Charlie jumped in. Like how Grandma's weight dropped 20 pounds in 2 months. Or how her bank account emptied out right before she died. Sarah laughed. Bitter and forced. "You think I stole from her? Seriously? What? Do you have some CSI folder you're about to pull out?" "Not here," I said calmly. "But we do." She stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. "You self-righteous assholes. You think you're heroes now?" Sammy leaned forward. "We know what you did, Sarah." Her eyes darted toward Mom, who sat frozen, mouth half open. "Are you all listening to this?" she said, voice rising. "They're accusing me of what? Murder? Is that what this is?" I stood. "Neglect, abuse, theft, and maybe worse." She pointed at me, shaking. "You smug little shit. Always sitting in your apartment, playing Big Brother when you couldn't be bothered to do one night with her. One night. I wiped her. I fed her. You starved her," I said. And that's when she lost it. She lunged, knocked her wine glass over, grabbed a steak knife and pointed it. Not at me, but at herself. "You want a confession?" she screamed. "Fine." I hated her. She made me miserable. All she did was cry and piss herself and stare at the ceiling. I kept her alive longer than anyone else would have. And I deserved every damn penny. The room went dead quiet. Charlie hit record on his phone under the table. Sammy was already dialing. 10 minutes later, the cops were there. Sarah was sitting on the floor by then, mascara running, hands still shaking. She didn't resist when they cuffed her. I followed them out onto the porch. "You'll regret this," she hissed at me. "They'll never believe you." I didn't even blink. They don't have to, I said. You already told the truth. Sarah's arrest hit the family like a bomb. At first, no one wanted to believe it. Mom sat in her kitchen for hours that night, staring at her hands like she could still unsee the knife, unhear the confession. Dad didn't say much at all, just kept walking in and out of rooms like he'd lost something. Maybe he had. Charlie uploaded the video to a private drive, made copies, backed it up on 2 hard drives, and a USB. We weren't taking chances. Sammy went one step further. He contacted a local elder care watchdog group and handed over everything. The emails, the bank records, the videos, the bruises. All of it. Within 72 hours, Sarah was formally charged with financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, elder abuse, and unlawful use of a dependent's funds. The detective assigned to the case called it one of the most detailed citizen-led reports she'd ever seen. The story made local news. Not big headlines, but enough for the people in town to start whispering. Sarah Dempsey, once the angel granddaughter, now the woman accused of robbing and mistreating her own grandmother. Mom cried, not because she thought Sarah was innocent, but because she didn't know who her daughter really was. She always seemed so tired, she kept saying. She just wanted to help. I didn't say what I was thinking. That maybe none of us had really been paying attention. Grandma's funeral came and went. Closed casket. Small service. Most people didn't ask questions, just offered polite nods and warm hands on shoulders. But I noticed who avoided eye contact. Who whispered. Who didn't stay long at the reception. After the funeral, I stood out back with Charlie and Sammy, watching the cars leave. Nobody said much. She'd be proud of you, Charlie said finally. I shrugged. I don't know. She would, Sammy added. You were the first one to believe her. I didn't say anything, just stared at the horizon and let the silence stretch. In the weeks that followed, we kept pushing. We got in touch with a local paper and gave them everything. They published a feature about elder abuse, how easy it is to hide it, how often it's a family member, how few victims speak up. Grandma's name was in it. So was Sarah's. I won't pretend it fixed anything. My family's still in pieces. Mom barely speaks during dinners. Dad avoids all mention of Sarah. Sometimes I wonder if they're mourning the loss of a daughter, or just the version they thought she was. But me? I've started to feel something different. Not peace. Not pride. Just clarity. Because now, when I think about Grandma, I don't think about the end. I think about that day Charlie and I sat beside her, when she finally told the truth. Her hands trembling, her voice shaking. She trusted us. And we listened.